Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back with another episode of Hearthstone. Let me start off by asking you if you have any ad blockers to whitelist me or turn those off. Help me make a career. So I checked for the past 3 days every single one of these quests, trying to curate it. But I didn't get any bad quests. This will work out very well. All we have to do is play as the rogue or warrior or the paladin and priest, and because of that there is actually a road here. If we play paladin and warrior and get 2 victories, I will get all 3 of these quests done really fast. So this may actually be a short recording session because of that. So we're looking for a paladin or warrior as the arena run. Let's see if we can get lucky enough for one of those. Last recording session we didn't take an arena run because there was no reason to. Ooh, so we have now the choice. I guess I'll choose warrior.
None are stronger than I.
This is an amazing amount of overlap here for having 3 quests. With this warrior arena run, as long as I can get 2 victories, that there may be only 1 episode recorded at all, which kind of sucks, but it's not really gonna bother me too much. I'm experimenting here with recording at 60 frames per second. So I saw some lagginess just now, but that could be anything. See, I saw a little bit of lagginess there. And it's not looking very good as far as doing 60 frames per second. I would love to do it. I would really love to do it, but it's just not looking well. Looking like my computer can handle it, which is a shame. Right now, as of recording, the Game Developers Conference is going on. Lots of things are being announced. Valve has announced Source 2. They've announced a VR headset, virtual reality headset. They say they've finished designing their controller for Steam boxes, and they say Steam machines are going to come out in November, which I guess are all good things. No announcement of any games, so that would have been the real thing on the Valve section that would have really interested me. Let's see. Let's see. So with Source 2 being released for free, it is kind of in a far third place in my opinion, because the other announcements are that both Unreal and Unity now are sorta free. And free is always a debatable term. So I believe it was Unity, but they could have been Unreal. These are the 2 source engines, game developing engines is what they all are. It's what people use to make video games. And I believe it's Unity that has come out and said it's free for you to use, However, if your game sells over $3,000 worth of gross revenue, so not adjusted income or anything like that, actual just if you earn over $3,000, then you owe us 5% for every dollar after that. So they want a percentage. Now, if you have a game that goes on to do really well and you make millions of dollars, that means you would be paying them quite a lot of money. It's debatable whether they actually deserve that. That is not a deal I would be willing to take. In my own mind, because let's say somebody gave you a car, but then they said, if you, after your first paycheck, you have to give me 5% of every paycheck after that for that car, as long as that car goes. That's a really silly deal. I don't think many people would agree to that, because if you're getting paid nothing, you'll probably need every single bit of that money to begin with. But if you go and you get a great job or raise and you're getting paid CEO salaries of millions of dollars a year, well then you're paying this person who gave you just a, what, at most $50,000, $100,000 car. That's, so he would have got, if you were CEO, he would have gotten all the money back immediately in the first year, and then for the next 20 to 25 years, if you're lucky, you're just gonna be paying him for no reason. It doesn't make sense. Products are products. It should just be a flat fee. If you think that your game is worth, your game development platform software is worth $5,000, like Photoshop is pretty expensive, and that's a good equivalent. But yeah, the whole thing seems very strange. And then, so that's Unity. I think Unreal's terms are a little bit different and probably a little bit more expensive, is what I've heard through the rumor mill. But so maybe they have to do that. I understand the thought behind it. It makes sense if you are a video game programmer in college, or if you're some small company that doesn't have any money, or you're just doing a fan project. It makes sense to try and bring those guys onto your software so they'll use it for the rest of their life. But there needs to be a cap there.
Victory or
Really,
death.
they need to go one more step in their generosity, which I'm sure it is in their mind, and I see their line of thinking. But they need to say, we want 5% of your income up to $1 million, $500,000. I mean, 500,000, $500,000 for software is a ridiculously expensive software still. But just to say, I want the unlimited potential of income strikes me as just a little silly. And what's interesting that I've heard, again in the rumor mill, both of which from the Giant Bombcast, really, so I don't know how rumor mill that really is that most games, most big AAA games right now are not using those engines. They've all gone to the system of creating their own engines because
I am ready.
they've developed their own and invested so much into their own custom engine. So Bethesda has id Tech, Assassin's Creed has, I think it's called Frostbite. Every single major player now has their own engine. And, you know, that's a problem. And if one of these, if Unreal or Unity was really open source and everybody could contribute to it and develop it, and everything that was developed making the previous Assassin's Creed was already in that source code, and everything that was in every other triple game was already in that code, we'd be probably a lot farther in the development of video games. But almost a significant portion of open source people absolutely say it has to be free. That the other part of that is that it has to be 100% completely free. And the limitation of, oh, we're gonna take a percentage of your gross revenue. Gross revenue in accounting can be significantly different than adjusted revenue. Gross revenue is get $1 from your game, and then you have to pay $5 to the developer if you want to do a simple thing. Somebody had to program that game, so you were paying him $1 a day to make the game. It took him 5 days to make the game, so your gross revenue is you've made $1 in profit, and your adjusted revenue is negative $4. But then they come back and they say they want 5% of that dollar, so now your adjusted revenue is negative $4.05, because now you have to pay 5 cents to Unreal, because
Job's done.
Because your gross revenue goes up. So you've actually lost more money using Unity than in certain situations if you had just made your own internal libraries, and then you don't have to pay anything. So there's situations where it definitely could be like that. And let's see what else did. I haven't seen a lot more from GDC. GDC is a game developers conference. It's just a lot of people talking about developing games. Have I really seen a massive improvement in technology lately? Not really. Everybody is feeling like everybody feels like
Move quickly.
like VR is gonna be the next big thing. Everybody feels like that's gonna turn around and change the industry drastically. But maybe it will, maybe it won't.
I smell blood. Ruktar Ogre!
Steam machines and the whole Steambox things. I'm very doubtful that that's going to work unless they come out with an actual console and they drop the whole thought that it's going to be people, all kinds of computer manufacturers can make Steam machines, and they just will get certification. And I don't even know what the requirements, if there are any requirements to be a Steam machine, are. So somebody could come out with something that's like a 1 gigahertz, 1 core processor, which is far too slow to play almost any game today, and call it a Steam machine. Maybe depending on the requirements, that might be true. Or somebody could come out with like an 4 gigahertz 8 core processor, which I'm not even sure they sell those, but that would be massively fast for video games, and that would be called a Steam machine. So word of mouth will start spreading very strangely. It's like some Steam machines really suck and some Steam machines are really good. Or somebody has a cheap computer that is set up wrong or has defective parts and they're saying, oh, my Steam machine is always crashing. Well, like a computer might do.
Medic!
Don't mess with Tusk.
Taroga! First kill.
Job's done.
Has anything else been announced that's that interesting? Sounds like there was a couple of old games that they're going to try and remake. Clay Fighter and Toe Jam and Earl. I have no experience with either one of those games. They're both very old. So it wouldn't really probably motivate me to play them today. Plus, I don't think either one of them are on computers. Maybe one is. Double Fine released their documentary for free about the creation of Broken Age, or as it was called during the documentary, Double Fine Adventure. It's not a, it doesn't have a very good narrative. I will have to say,
Love my new recipe.
is that a lot of documentaries, I'm gonna mispronounce it every single time, don't worry,
Your turn to bleed!
are set to a narrative that there's a very specific message they're trying to send across.
Job's done.
And the only real narrative in this in this show, in this short film, I'll just call it a short film, yeah, was that producers are bad and they keep stopping Double Fine from making their adventure game that they want to make, because Grim Fandango was like the game of the year and still didn't make that much money, which is a silly thought, because the reason why people didn't want to play Grim Fandango, if I'm to venture a guess, is because Grim Fandango has a very strange art style that doesn't appeal. That is the problem with Grim Fandango.
Engaging TC-130 into dislocator.
So it's silly to say that, and it was given Game of the Year by GameSpot, which I think at the time was not a highly accredited or recognized review site. It's become much more since, but so it's just silliness. And adventure games do have problems. Adventure games in the old days were games that when you would only get a game once a year, you could play it and struggle through it, and it would give you hours and hours of entertainment. And that's just not the environment that games are set to anymore. Now, games are set in a system of they need to be quick because they're competing with everybody else's time
Suck steel,
and all these other games. And so they need to be somewhat quick. They don't have to be terribly quick. If you go back and look at my Talos Principle series, which is a great example, that's a game that's just full of puzzles, but in comparison to an old point-and-click adventure like The Day of the Tentacle, where any item from any point in the game could be used in any fashion for across 3 different timelines, the Talos Principle has you go through a barrier force field, and you have this small area where you are given a small number of elements and a small goal. And that's how puzzles need to be these days. It's just keep it simple, keep it small, and then have much more of them. Then same is true for Portal and Portal 2. Each room, its own little isolated thing, so you can't get so off the beaten path that you are completely lost.
For the king!
Now, I do like Double Fine's games. I'm not, in no way am I saying I don't like them. It's just that
Job's done.
they need to do something different. And I think from what I've seen of the first element of Broken Age, they did improve a lot on that. They still kind of have the old mentality of having an inventory box and such, but they've at least gotten away from the old point and click, click open to do something, click use to do something. All of that is way too old fashioned. Now it's just you click on the item and you do something, and sometimes that poses a problem because you'll do something that your character will in the game will do something you weren't expecting it to do. So you'll click on a bottle expecting him to drink it, and then he'll pick it up and smash it across the table, and you're like, okay. That's a little strange. And I liked what I've seen in Broken Age. The whole Kickstarter thing, and then it's taken them probably the average amount of time it would have taken anyway at any point to do a game, but it is definitely exposed how long that actually is. It takes a really long time to make video games, and breaking it up into episodes is not a great system. If people are gonna keep on doing Kickstarter for video games, they need to just come out straight with it and say, we want you to fund us, and then 2 to 4 years later the game will be out. And that is an awfully long time for an individual to fund something and then 2 to 4 years even remember that they had funded it. But it's the truth of video game development. It's not as iterative as you would hope. It's not as quick as you hope, and that's how you get good games. If you want a game out every year, well then you get things where 2 different teams are working on the game, so it still takes them 2 years, and then 1 year the game is good, and the next year the game is bad. And that's what happens a lot of times with sports games and such. It's just... So, annual releases don't really work. I don't even feel that it's a good time frame for releasing games.
Job's done.
I kind of feel like BioShock was a pretty good time frame for releasing games. Feels like BioShock 1, then BioShock 2 came out, and they were about 2 years away from each other. Maybe they were 3 years. Now, let's see. So, Portal 1 and Portal 2 are 4 years away from each other, and That's a little too long. I would say it's 4 years, but not incredibly too long. Once you start getting into 5, 6, 7 years, it really feels like, oh, they're never gonna make it. And if they do make a game at that point, it's because they're remaking it and reinvigorating it, and you get into the realm of other things at that point.
For the gnomes!
No problem.
Job's done.
I think we probably have the right amount of adventure games. Really? And there's also a problem in particularly the Maniac Mansion, Day of the Tentacle adventure games. What we've come to know as adventure games, which are really point-and-click adventure games. And then we have, at least in my mind, I have the problem of I don't realize as much that there are other types of adventure games out there. But they're often just called action adventure games, if not, and people forget the adventure part of it.
For the gnomes!
The latest released Tomb Raider that reboot the series does very much feel like an adventure game. But there is action in it too. If they had taken all the action out of it, then you would have had what I think adventure games should be today. Running around the forest, you can hunt animals, I think, and still call it an adventure game. But maybe that's just you do it once. Or you set traps and you don't, as long as you don't have the crosshairs of a gun or a bow. Maybe that's when you can take away the action part of it. But there's this.
No problem.
There's got to be other ways, other gameplay scenarios.
No problem.
For adventure games, instead of just having a very heavily dialogue-based thing with very light item collection and item usage that is prevalent in a lot of what we point-and-click adventure games and adventure games. And the reason why those games were so popular, of course, is that there was just no way to put in fight mechanics or anything. It would cost too much, take too long, or the technology didn't exist. It really goes back to just why a lot of games don't play. I was recently, for some reason, somebody was playing a Twitch live stream of Real Mist, which 20 to 30-year-old game Mist is, and then Real Mist was remade in using the Real Engine or whatever it is called. It may not be called the Real Engine. And
I can take the hit.
And that is a game that I love Myst. I love the concept of Myst. I actually feel like the third Myst, Myst 3, is the best place to start, and then go back and maybe try Myst 1 and Myst 2, which is called Riven. It's called Riven, the sequel to Myst. But then they did some crazy things with Myst 5, which was completely different, and it changed the story, I feel like, a lot. As it tried to explain the story, it seemed to change the story. But
Race for impact.
I don't think I could ever do a video series on Myst. So I'd have to certainly think really hard about how I would, because to play Mist, oh, so I can only attack minions with that weapon. Oh wait, well, whatever. Looks like I'm probably gonna win this. If I had another weapon though.
For the king!
Myst is a game where when you first play it, you wander around, you're given really little to no instructions on how to play it. You're just supposed to wander around the world, manipulate items, and through your manipulation of those items, you're going to somehow be able to figure out what's going on and what you're supposed to be doing.
Job's done.
And eventually that's true, you will be able to figure that all out, or you'll go online nowadays and find the solutions. Again, a game that before the internet, so people would have to rely to word of mouth, calling tip helplines, or looking up solutions in the magazine. And Myst in particular, well, Riven is pretty much universally thought of as the most difficult of the series. It's just obscure things. There's a certain part in Riven where you have to actually learn the numbering system and learn how to count using their characters in this made-up language to progress anywhere, and it's just not a game by today's standards. And
May my ancestors.
I wish there was a game like Myst, but it would have to be
Job's done.
it would have to be really dumbed down. It would have to be smaller things. Some thought that the new game, The Witness, that's gonna come out might be somewhat like it, but I've had that happen to me on several occasions where games feel like they're gonna be something like that, and it's really not. It's hard to recapture or that same feeling. I would love to see the creators of Myst actually be able to write the story and make suggestions to the production of a video game, but I absolutely really don't want them to try and make video games anymore, because they're out of touch. They really are. They haven't made a game in a very long time, and what they were making when they made Myst was basically a slideshow with some heat maps. It's feasible in YouTube I could make a game like Myst, and I could make it better, because in YouTube you have the ability to put boxes over video and pictures, and if people click on it, it will take them to the next two different sections. So it is totally feasible that I could just do that and make a better looking and just as complicated as Myst was game. But I like the storyline. I think it probably needs a reboot, which is kind of strange to say. I think Myst needs to be rebooted, but yeah, it does, because 5 messed with it, Uru messed with it. All they need to do is tighten up the story about what was really going on, because they never really satisfactorily explained it. It was just that there was this whole universe of worlds that you could get to through books, and were you going into a magically created place, or were the books being just being magically made to take you to universe that already existed. And we never really got that answer. Well, I never satisfactorily got that answer as to whether the worlds were being created or just linked to. They're called linking books, so you'd think they were being linked to, but then a lot of the worlds seem very unrealistic to ever existed. One of the puzzles in one of the later, I think in Uru, which I didn't get to play as in the format of an MMO. I only got to play in the format of it being the single player release version of it. But one of the puzzles that I still to this day would like to see implemented in Minecraft. Why Minecraft? Because that's kind of what my Minecraft server is it's supposed to be a Myst-like place, and we're using Minecraft because that allows other people to create on it and me to create on it very easily. If I had the time and energy, I would go make it in probably something like Unity or something that would give you rounded edges.
You love my new recipe.
But one of the puzzles is this puzzle where you literally go to an area and then you exit the area and you come back and you are supposed to be in like hundreds of years in the future of that area where you were the last time. And then you can do that and you can cycle and go through like 4 ages of that same area. And
Feel the
what gets revealed to you eventually is you find it's an island, it's a small island with current flows pushing you so you can't swim away from the island. Well, you eventually find a way to turn off the current flows and you can swim away. And as you start swimming away, you see the clouds in the distance, and then the clouds get closer and closer, and then all of a sudden you realize that the clouds are actually fake. And then you swim behind the fake clouds, and guess what? There's actually a machine that takes you through a little like railroad cart, minecart ride type thing to far away from the area you were at. And when you look back at the area you're at, it's a giant sphere that contains the area, and that sphere is connected to a giant device that actually rotates. So all 4 of those quote-unquote times and ages were actually all at the exact same time. It was just as you left, the machine would rotate, and then you would come back and be in a different place that just looks exactly the same as the previous one. And that was just an amazing reveal to me. I'm probably underselling it by quite a lot, but I found it very interesting, that concept, to have the game pose that suggestion. And that was the part about all the Myst games that really interested me, is that you would see these crazy huge mechanical contraptions, and that's where the mentality of the creators would really come in. But I certainly don't want them making the game. They need to hire another team, and they kinda did. EA, I think, paid them to make or made the game and just licensed like Myst 3 or 4 or 5. So I don't think anybody had any actual code input on those games. But I don't know if in Myst 5 anybody really had the input story-wise either. and they still seem to love it. If you go to the website, they're like, we love it, and we made a remastered 10-year version of the game, but that was probably 5 years ago, so now it's like, at this point, we made a remastered, they need to make a remastered 15-year version of the game, and that gets just silly at that point, because you're really getting, you could probably remake this every single year at this point and make a major improvement in graphics, because that's all the game was graphics. And it's not that hard. It wouldn't be that hard at all. It would be, I mean, it would be to the level of a patch, really. If you put out 4K images and render it at that, well, somewhere on their hard drives they probably have 8K images that they could render at 8K the next year. I mean, when you get into the production level of video graphics production, you can spend weeks and weeks rendering a single frame, and you could come out with ridiculously high resolutions and have like one final version at a ridiculous, say, 100K resolution, and then every year just take that 100K those 100K files, render them down to a to only slightly better than the last year's version, and just push that out as a patch. And the reason why you do that is just as internet speeds get faster and people's hard drives get faster. So it's not difficult.
That was a mistake.
Let's see. Well, I'm just gonna win this. I got a little lucky on that turn, but I don't think I would have lost either way. So if I get one more win, I'm going to unlock 2 quests on this and probably be set to unlock the 3rd quest. Now, I did a bit of a miscalculation there. I will have to get at least 4 wins on this series, recording series, so that we should get at least 2 episodes at this rate. Yeah. PAX is about to happen. I don't know what's gonna, if anything's really gonna be released at PAX. PAX always seems like it's a little bit strange as far as what is or isn't, what it is or isn't really. Is PAX a convention where a bunch of video game fans and other kinds of games fans come together and celebrate it, or is PAX moving to the point where people are going to actually announce things there? And I'm not certain I know the answer to that question. So, as for me going to any of these conventions, I might want to do it, but I'm really scared of going to a convention. Just because I don't want to get sick, if anything more than that. We've already had a situation where I've been sick, and it was frankly no fun, and it hurt the number of episodes I recorded. And I'm not sure if I'd really accomplish much going to any convention. Maybe I'd have fun, maybe I wouldn't. A lot of social interactions are not things that I'm that interested in, that are things that, hey, I play video games, I don't deal with people type things. That's what sometimes gets me in this elitist way of thinking, is that I'll see people who have good social interaction skills and who are like thriving and have friends and all that, and I'm like thinking to myself, how can you be good at video games and have friends and hang out with your friends? And I don't think they really can do it as much as I do. If there is one thing I have going for me, it is my ability to play video games for long periods of time and play a lot of video games. I think a lot of people that have tons of friends and hang out with them several times a week are not playing anywhere as many video games as I am. So, to that point, social interactions, even with gamers, doesn't really strike me as something that would be worth my time or that interesting.
Job's done.
I had thoughts that maybe I wanted to go to CES a few years ago, but the way CES has become now, it's just tons of ridiculous gadgets. Or I've realized at least that it's just tons of ridiculous gadgets, and half of them don't ever come out. It's really a situation where you can just forever be waiting for devices. I've seen some things that were announced at CES, and then 5 years later, it comes out. Technology is really slow. A great example of this is I started looking into color e-ink, e-paper screens, whether it was possible to even do it in a laboratory, and I found that you could do it, and that there actually was one device that was in color. The whole thing of the color e-ink is it's not very many colors. You're getting close to like 256 colors, where most video resolutions it's billions and billions of colors. But it was possible, and that there had been a device out for a couple of years already. It just wasn't available in America, so I'd never heard of it. And so I told somebody that, yeah, they have color e-ink screens, and that they'll eventually get those pebbles to a color screen. And the person just looked at me and goes, that's impossible. There's no way to have, there's no such thing as color e-ink screens. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't like to argue with people. I know you're wrong. I was looking at it a week ago, but whatever. You can just be ignorant. I just told you a fact, but you decided to doubt me. And that's more that person's own personal problem than anything else. But it does go to show you the Pebble's been out for about 4 years as a black and white device. Nobody was really even thinking that it would come out in color that much. But I personally knew it eventually would. And so now I'm kind of interested in getting the Pebble Steel Time. They announced the Pebble Time, which is the color cheap version, and then they're coming out now with the Pebble Steel Time. So I want to get the Pebble Steel Time. But I also have to think to myself, I do not wear watches. I just don't. So I'm still waiting for a device that would be a color e-paper, e-ink. There's a whole thing there where one of them is owned by is copyrighted and owned by one company, and then one of them is a general broad term.
Tazingo! Yes!
So I'm not certain which is which.
Suck, steel swine!
Job's done.
But yeah, I'm looking for like Probably ebook
Your
reader.
magic shall not save you.
Uh, that's what I wanted, and that's what the device that's not available in America is. It is
Shields up.
targeted to schools though, and so just buying one on eBay is a ridiculous amount of money. It's like $800, I think, for an ebook reader, and I'm like, no, because I got the black and white one at Barnes & Noble for $80, so I can't pay 10 times as much just so it has 16 shades of 16 colors that don't even look that good. And oh, by the way, it has its own proprietary software on it, so you can't just load. Let's see. You can't load like Android apps on it or anything like that. That's
You love my new recipe.
really what I would like to do.
Job's done.
There is a phone I think called the Yada phone that had like the backside was an black and white e-ink screen, so you could check your messages and such without turning on your screen. I don't know if that's really going to save you a significant amount of battery to be worth having two screens and all of that. If the two screens are on top of each other, it makes a little bit more sense. It's kind of silly to have one on the back side and one on the front side.
Job's done.
But yeah, it makes more sense when it's color. It feels more like it's something that would be something I would use. But really, it needs to be color, and it needs to have a much faster refresh rate, which they're getting slightly better at that, but they haven't got to the point where they could do anything like 30 frames per second or anything like that.
Job's done.
If they could do 30 frames per second in color, then at that point, you've really eliminated the need for a regular screen. You would just have probably a slightly lower quality looking screen on the realm of an old Nokia phone screen or something like that. But that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to have more colors, have e-ink screen with more colors, faster refresh rate, and eventually just get rid of the LCD screen. And if we could get all of that, then hopefully they could still maintain the major battery savings that the ink is trying to get at.
You call that a weapon?
I got the e-ink book reader for my very elderly grandfather, and it is just a Barnes & Noble software on there. And darn me if it is not simple enough. It is a very, very simple software. But because he is just that elderly, it's still not simple enough. It really isn't. A lot of them have like buttons on the side, and this version didn't because it was smaller, and it has a backlight, so he needs the backlight so he can see, and then that drains the battery a little faster, but it doesn't really matter because it just doesn't. It still lasts a very long time. And he's very surprised about it, and he's like, he always asks me, and forgets he asked me, he goes, how is it it's not using any electricity when it's showing a picture? And I try to explain it to him again, and he goes, oh yeah. And then sometimes he'll remember it and explain it back to me, like I wasn't the one that explained it to him, because he doesn't remember who he's talking to half the time. But he is surprisingly still lucid and active for his age. But it's just not simple enough, and then he wants me to put like a Spanish dictionary on there for them, and all it takes is ebook. So I can put an ebook of a Spanish dictionary, but that doesn't work with their software because their dictionary is you have to hold and click on a word, and then it pops up an option. And let's see, let's do one more warrior game, and then you have the ability to highlight or bring up the dictionary or bookmark a couple things. And there's no changing options. There's no simplifying it for me. And I don't know how to make it more simpler for him. It's really simple device, and it's still not simple enough. So it gets down to the point where you just have to get them large print books and just be like, here's a old-fashioned paper book. You understand that you can't mess that up too much. But yeah, it sucks because the books are too heavy for him to hold, and that's the whole point of the e-reader, was that it was supposed to be a replacement because he loves to read. And has done a lifetime of reading. But yeah, that's a little tangent, but it's called the Nook Glow Light, and if you're gonna get it for somebody, I would recommend you have to judge how old that person is and how tech savvy that person is, because at the age of about 80, well, yeah, I'd say at the age of about 80, they're probably too old to be learning any new technology. But then I've known some people who are really bad with technology, and when they're really bad with technology, they won't learn new technology at any age. And those people are kind of irritants in my life because you can't, society does not, should not, and cannot accept people who are unwilling to learn anything if it's important to society, and technology is important to society. So we can't tolerate people who are just saying, I refuse to learn how to use a handle, for instance. Imagine somebody says that they are just absolutely going to refuse to learn how to use a doorknob. That's ridiculous. The whole of the United States, at least, is covered with doors that have doorknobs. And we couldn't have people standing in front of doors just waiting for somebody else to open the door and blocking the way. It's the same thing with technology. We can't have people refusing to learn about how to use their computers smartly and not get them infected with viruses that turn them into spy bots and robots that then slow down the internet for the rest of the people. That's where the internet slowdowns and all these denial of a service attacks come from. It's people that refuse to learn technology enough to have the precautions in place, at least a reasonable amount of precautions in place, to stop their computer from getting hijacked and used in an attack against the rest of the internet. It's a pretty good example. I'm usually much worse at making examples. And so it's just part of our society, in the United States at least, that you have to continuously be learning the new things, the new popular things. You don't have to learn everything about every new fad thing, but you do have to learn, you have to know things exist, you have to generally be able to figure things out. Yeah. If you're still watching TV, guess what? You need to figure out how Hulu, Netflix, and YouTube all work, and stop watching TV, because probably encouraging and funding some really awful TV providers who are ripping you off a lot, more than likely, for whoever cable company or or satellite provider you're using. So that's the whole thing, is people don't watch TV anymore. And there's a reason for it. It's too expensive, it takes too long, it's full of commercials. The quality of TV productions has never been that high. I won't say it's gotten significantly worse. I will just say it's never been that high. Which is, I feel, more the truth. That it may have been a situation where less was getting made, so because less was getting made, it felt like that things are getting significantly worse, but not really. There was a lot of garbage getting made in the old days. It was just getting made and then canceled, and then made, then canceled. Now things don't get canceled. Now we've got 5,000 channels, so we've got to keep everything full. To get back to the Broken Age and Double Fine thing, I love stacking. I love some of their new games that they released recently. I like Brutal Legend, and I'd like to see a sequel. I would like them to change the gameplay mechanics, but that's fine. If they want to change the style of gameplay mechanics on a good story game, that doesn't really bother me too much. It might bother some people, but I doubt it would bother many in Brutal Legends account, because nobody liked those mechanics that much. And I'm talking about the stage battles. I did like the thought of the part where we were running around with the guitar and beating people up with the guitar. I thought that was pretty fun. I wonder. But yeah, I wish that Broken Age had come out as a complete game instead of these segments. And it's not like they are segments in the fashion of being, or how would I say it? It's not like they were being broken up as episodes and they had all the episodes done. It feels very much more like they just don't have the next episode done. Now they are doing that with Resident Evil Revelations 2, and there's a problem with that, is that most people, reviews I saw, said the first episode of Revelations 2 was no good. And so if people turn around and say the first part's no good, you've lost probably a lot of people taking that risk, taking that major risk. Well, look at this. 17. This is really a great example. This is the best example of this actually working ever. What a good example of that. 17 and then 5 more. One done. Good. So we are at, what were we at? Well, 40, 80, 120, and it's gonna take us 150 to buy another arena run. So I'm actually at the end of all of this, even though this is gonna be easier, I'm gonna be like probably 10 to 30 gold shorter on this run. It's not a big deal, but it does kind of suck for this recording session. All we have left to do next episode is get 2 victories of Paladin and Priest. Unless we get into a horrible losing streak, I think we'll get that done. And this is fine. It will get me, give me some more time to do some other recordings, do some other games. Now let's see, I've been testing this episode on 60 frames per second, so on Hearthstone it seems like it's gonna work, but I really need it to work on every single game I do. So I'm gonna try and record it on every game that I'm recording at the moment and see if it works. If it doesn't work for a single game, it's just too difficult to go into the settings and change it back and forth. I'll make a mistake and you'll get something at 29 frames per second at some point. So, but for Hearthstone it seems like it worked. We did see some slowdowns, but I've been seeing slowdowns in Hearthstone for a while now, and it seems to be more the program and the internet speed than anything else. Anyways, that's the end of this episode. We'll do at least one more. As always, I ask that you like, share, subscribe, comment if you want to, and watch every second of my videos. All that helps me out. If you want to support me through fan funding, click on my name, Rydo. Go to my main YouTube page. On the right is a blue button that says support this channel. Any amount you can donate will definitely be appreciated. If you want to follow me on Twitter or Steam or Battle.net so you could end up playing a game here with me, all that information is down below. And Google+. You can follow me on Google+. I still need people to follow me on Google+. And that's it. So thank you for watching. Have a good evening.